Hey everybody, wanted to do a quick video here. No production, nothing like that. Just wanted to get this out. Something came across my desk just a minute ago. Actually, I got to credit this guy here. Think Like a Cop, the rest of the story. He brought it up in his I'll look at some headlines video that I was watching. He's got a pretty good channel. If you're interested in like real stories of what from a retired cop from his point of view where he doesn't have to worry about getting in trouble from his superiors, anything like that. And plus, he's not one of those bootlicking type cops where everything he thinks the government can do no wrong. No, he's really critical of how the police operate many times. So, interesting channel. But anyway, he mentioned this why Bitcoin may soon be worth nothing. Geez, man, I had to look this up and read it. And John Crudell, New York Post, New York Compost is what I like to call it because that's about what it's worth. He's a columnist here, and I guess these tiny little short articles is all he can come up with, and they pay him for it, which sounds like a pretty good gig to me. Anyway, let's go through this. He says, I thought we'd finally get rid of Bitcoin, but the fake currency, which I like to call Bitcon, just won't fade away. Bitcoin's price rallied to over $6,600 yesterday, but it had been well under $6,600 last week. Even at $6,600, Bitcoin is still 70% less than it was at the beginning of the year. Well, my friends, the US dollar is worth less than it was at the beginning of the year, and every year it is worth less and less and less. And only if you've been living under a rock have you not noticed that, with the exception of some things. Some things, the prices just kind of stay the same every year for some reason. It's kind of weird. Kind of weird how that works out. Manipulation, maybe. I'm talking about like oil, gas prices. Anyway, that's another topic for another video. He says, I use the term worth cautiously because Bitcoin is really worth nothing since it's backed by nothing or no one. It's a confidence game that has value only because people are convincing other people that it's worth something. Well, first of all, the US dollar is actually really worth nothing. It is backed by nothing. And it is only backed by the promise that the US government will honor it. So, yeah, that's pretty scary to put your wealth into something that is only worth something because the government promises you it's worth something. Huh. And a confidence game that only has value because people are convincing each other. Well, when you grow up and you go to school and you get educated in your uh, government sanctioned schools, they tell you US dollar is worth money, this is our currency, this is how we buy and sell things, and they never tell you anything about any alternatives. They won't tell you really much about gold or anything like that. They just kind of like convince you that the US dollar is the way to go. And so everybody believes that. They ask their got kid who comes and mows the yard, they pay him in dollar, they don't pay him in Bitcoin or in gold. It's just the accepted thing because people convincing each other. That's exactly what's going on here. He says same thing he accuses everyone who supports Bitcoin of doing. So of course he has to say, got it, Ponzi scheme, confidence game, fraud. Anyway, Bitcoin is headed for a value of zilch. It's only a matter of when. Oh, wow. This dude, man, he just dropped a knowledge bomb on us. We should all go out and sell our Bitcoin right now. What do you think? It's insane that this guy, that the New York Post is allowed to, or would even just print articles that are based on absolutely nothing but FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And this guy it has like an agenda against Bitcoin, it looks like. Over here on the right, you see, he's got another article called Watch Out for Bitcoin Criminals. And this is another short article. I mean, man, most of the time YouTube comments are longer than this. How can they even call this guy a columnist? He's not a columnist. He's a YouTube commentator. That's all he is, or commenter. He says, let me give you a consumer alert that I can't fully explain right now. Yeah, right. Just like he can't fully explain his stance on why Bitcoin is going to be worthless. If anyone, especially people selling a service, asks you to pay in Bitcoin, run away. Bitcoin transactions are untraceable. So if a crook promises you a good or a service, he can bolt after he's in possession of your Bitcoin. Oh, exactly, just like cash. Yeah, cash is kind of untraceable too, isn't it? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somehow you could trace that cash money that you give someone. I don't know. I'm not aware of any of that technology. So he says there's a criminal situation going on right now involving what I just described. I will get into it with specifics in the near future. Oh, this guy's really ambiguous about everything. He doesn't know much about nothing. Yeah, I looked at some of his other articles. It's not all anti-Bitcoin. He's got other articles. Probably all of them are real short. I didn't even feel like wasting my time to go through it. But let me talk about a couple of things real quick here. When you see articles like this, you know your friends and family are going to see that, and they're going to go, "Ooh, you're in that Bitcoin? Yeah, John Crudell over at the New York Post said blah blah blah." Well, let me give you some facts here. The United States dollar does have a use case. The United States dollar is backed by something if you consider the promise that the US government will honor it as something that's as a backing for the dollar, and the US dollar has a unlimited supply. There is no limit to the supply that of the dollars because the Federal Reserve can print as many as they want when the government says, "Hey, we need some money." Um, Bitcoin has a use case. It is backed by the demand, I guess you could say. People believe in it, and it has a limited supply. So Bitcoin has more going for it than the US dollar does. Now, 28 million Bitcoin, I think it is. If I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong on that, but 28 million Bitcoin, that's all there's ever going to be. And Bitcoin doesn't need to be, um, you don't need a, what do you call it? There's no currency conversions, right? You don't need to exchange, you don't need to worry about exchange rates between countries. You can just send Bitcoin anywhere. Its demand is worldwide same. Its worth is the same. And talking about the US dollar, why do I say it's not worth anything? It's not worth anything like it was last year. Well, the US dollar value goes down every time that the Federal Reserve prints money. And if you want to talk about a Ponzi scheme, check out how the Federal Reserve works. They print money for the government, but in order to make it quote unquote legal, they don't just print it and give it to the government because that would be counterfeiting. So the government borrows it from the Federal Reserve, and then they have to pay the interest. How do they pay the interest? Well, the Federal Reserve takes US dollar. So they got to pay the interest back in US dollar, but how can you pay interest on money? Like, for example, let's say the very first day the Federal Reserve opened up, they printed one single dollar bill. US government borrowed that dollar bill. Now the Federal Reserve says you owe us 3% interest. Well, there is no other money besides that one single dollar bill. So the government says, can you print up some more money and we'll borrow that from you, and so we can use some of that to pay off the interest on our first loan. And then on and on it goes till you get to the point where we are today. Doesn't that kind of seem like a Ponzi scheme? Maybe it's more along the lines of fraud. So yeah, man, I trust the worth of Bitcoin more than I do the worth of the US dollar. Sure, the price of the Bitcoin is down to $6,000 or whatever. That's just basing it on the US dollar value. Worldwide, what it is worth in US dollar, I mean, I don't know. All I know is I don't trust the government, what they say. They could do things like some of these other countries where we've seen that their money went to almost zero worth. I know Zimbabwe was one. I can't think of another. I think maybe Argentina did the same thing, where it ended up being you'd have to spend 1,000 of their like you'd have to spend $1,000 to buy a loaf of bread. It's crazy because the money's worth nothing. If the government got up one day and just said, "That's it, we're not allowing U.S. dollars to be used. We're going to use the whatever they come up with next," all the cash you got stashed in your mattress is immediately worth nothing. But if you got Bitcoin stashed away, it doesn't care what government or what part of the world you live on. All it cares is that people have a demand for it, and they do. What else was I going to say? Federal Reserve, yeah, that's a real horrible thing, the way that the money is printed like that. You should never, ever store your wealth in the US dollar. Or whatever country you're in, you should not store the wealth in your local fiat currency. I mean, when you're making profits with crypto, like in arbitraging, it's good. Yeah, take your money out and convert some of that crypto into fiat currency so you can pay your bills or go buy gas or do whatever. But take the rest of it, if you're going to save it away, don't put it in a stupid bank and don't put it in Bitcoin. I mean, that kind of goes against what I said earlier. But because Bitcoin has volatility, as we've seen, it went from 20,000 to 6,000. It is not a very stable place to store your wealth. I would store your wealth in precious metals, gold, silver, things like that, because the value of that precious metals doesn't really change much over decades, hundreds of years. What an ounce of gold could buy 100 years ago, it can still buy today. I don't know, like let's say an ounce of gold could buy you a brand new suit, top of the line, 3-piece suit. Well, today, an ounce of gold could buy you a top of the line 3-piece suit. The difference is what the USD value is for the two different things. Now, back 100 years ago, let's just pretend a 3-piece suit would cost you $5. Back in those days. So let's say you put those five, instead of buying the suit, you put it on, you hid it somewhere. 100 years from now, somebody pulls that $5 out. Can they buy a 3-piece suit with what they just found? No, no way. You could barely buy a gallon of gasoline with it. But if you put an ounce of gold somewhere 100 years ago, buried it in the ground, and someone digs it up 100 years later, they could buy the same amount of stuff you could buy with it 100 years ago. So that's what I'm saying. So basically, what the takeaway from all of this is, there's lots of stuff going on in the mainstream media that is anti-crypto, and stuff like this from the New York Compost is influencing a lot of people. This guy can't even write an article longer than your average YouTube comment, but a lot of people are going to read this and they're going to think, ooh, you're in arbitraging? Ooh, you're in Bitcoin? Oh, that's that stuff that's untraceable and criminals use. Yeah, like cash money. It's just so hypocritical and crazy what this guy is saying. I want you guys to understand where I'm coming from, why I think that crypto is king. It is going to save us. It is what we need. Not the US dollar, not your fiat currency in whatever country you're in. Because I know one thing, I don't trust my government to back my money. And I don't think anybody in the world trusts the United States government either that much. Now, I'm going to get a little political here, but without naming names, there have been a few countries in recent history who have decided to leave the US dollar. They did not want to use the US dollar to buy and sell oil. They wanted to go to the euro. So when that happens, regime change and the leaders get executed. That is the only thing that's keeping the US dollar worth something. If people would decide to quit using it it's called the petrodollar for a reason, because OPEC and all that, they use the US dollar. That's the only thing keeping our dollar worth anything. The Federal Reserve can print as much as they want. US government can borrow as much as they want, make them keep printing more. If they printed $1 trillion tomorrow, can you imagine how worthless your dollars would be today? I mean, your dollars would be a day after tomorrow. So yeah, I think I'm getting to the point where I'm repeating myself. Got to get back to work quick. Just didn't want to do any extras on this video. Just wanted to get it out and read it to you guys, and make sure to, I don't know. I don't even know why I want to put this article out there. Just to show you how stupid, ridiculous the media is. All right, man. I'll see you guys in the next video. And for those of you that watch me that are in arbitraging, keep on earning those arbs, baby.